in our last lecture, what we have covered these 4 access modifiers, right? So public, private, protected, and default. So you know the applicability of these 4 access modifier. It means public means you can access this thing or whatever the thing if you want to use with class or you want to use with method or variable. It means you can access that particular thing from outside that package and from anywhere. Okay. But when you are going to make it private, then you can only access that particular method as well as variable inside that class. Okay. It means outside that particular class, you cannot use that thing. So that is why we declare at that part known as your private. So private, whenever we are making any variable as private, so it means that somehow we are providing, we can call it as your security. Okay. We don't want that someone should see my variable or my method. So in that scenario, I will make my method as well as variable as what my private. And always remember 2 things. One basic point is that whenever you are declaring a class, and at that time, whenever you want to use some access modifier, so you can use either public access modifier or default access modifier, right? So the difference between public and default is only that is that the default access modifier you cannot access outside the package. Okay, within a package you can access each and everything, but outside package you cannot access that particular whatever the method, variable, or class. Now the fourth one is your protected. So protected access modifier is quite similar to your default access modifier with if you are working in a same package. Okay, but if we are working in an outside package, so as you can see over there in this metric that outside package, if we are using in different package, so in your default we cannot access that particular class, okay, or whatever the object of that particular class, we cannot access it in whenever we are using default. While in the case of protected, you can directly see that whenever we are working in a different package and we are using the concept of inheritance, right? So in that scenario, we will be able to access that particular whatever the method or whatever the thing we want to access, right? So this is so maximum accessibility is your public, and private you can access only within a class. Always remember, okay? Even don't say that okay within the same package we can access. No, only within a class. It is not at all related with a package thing part, right? So all these things, and we have discussed some of the problems. Now in order to do that, first of all I will just ask you one question. You can use your chat box and just post me the answer, okay, so that I will understand that whether you are able to understood all those topic like public, private, and all those things. You know the functionality of all those things. Then I will continue with my new topic. So I'm just explaining this question is that we have, I'm working in a same package. Okay, always remember, I'm working in a same package and I am having 2 classes. First one is your class access and second one is your public class main. And here in my first access class, what I'm having 2 variable. First one is your public, second one is your private. Then I'm having one method. And here in my second class, what I'm doing, because I'm working in the same package. So first of all, I am creating an object of my this class. Okay, I'm creating an object of this class and I am calling this your method. Okay, I'm calling this method. And after that, what I'm doing, I am printing the value of obj.x means x variable value and your y variable value. Now you have to tell me about if I am going to execute this code, then what will be the output of the program. Okay, so just take your time and you can use chat box and you can directly post it, whatever the answer according to you. Means whether we will get an error or whether we will get some output if we are going to execute this code. Okay, so let's check whether is there anyone who has posted me the answer. So till now, yeah. So one Vinayak has posted that we will get an error Again, Gautam got the same answer, that is error. So is there anyone who is getting the different answer? They can also post their answer. If they are thinking like, okay, we will get some different answer if we are going to execute this code, right? So I can see that only 2 students till now have posted the answer. Yeah, so Ujjwal Yadav has posted the answer will be 3 space 3. So now we are getting 2 answer, means we are getting some numeric value. Okay. Now, is there anyone who is getting some different answer? He or she can directly post your answer. Okay, so Nandini has posted, we will get an error. Okay, so let's discuss about it. Okay, so as you already know that in this class we are basically using in our entire program we are using 3 access modifier. First one is your public, second one is your private, and third one is your what we call it as your default. Okay. So here in this class is a default, and as you already know that we can make a class with the help of default access modifier. So public and default access modifier are valid. So till now, this thing is fine. We have created a class. We can create a public variable. We can create a private variable. That is correct. We can create a default access modifier method. That is correct. We have created 2 local variables A and B, and we are somehow assigning values over there, right? Till now everything is fine. Now inside in my second class, what I'm doing basically, I have created one more class, and I have made that class as public. So as I told you that in a single program at most one class should be public, always remember, at most. Okay, so here I'm making this class as public, so till now it is valid. I have created public static void main. Now everything is fine. Can I create an object of this class? Yes, I can create an object of this class. Why? Because this is a default access modifier, and within a package I can access this particular class. No issue at all. Now where we will get an error. So here you can see over there, whenever we are accessing this your obj.x, that is okay. We can access the value of what your obj.x. But if we are going to access the value of obj.y, so you already know that what is y? Y is my private access modifier. So y is a private access modifier. So y variable, it means what is the definition of private access modifier is that outside class we cannot access this variable directly, but we are accessing here where outside this class, even though we are creating an object. So don't get confused that okay sir, we have created an object, so what is the problem? No, the problem is that here we are creating an object outside this class, and we are accessing this variable outside this class. Okay, so always remember, don't get confused that okay we are creating an object of that particular class, so what is the issue? No, in which class we are implementing our entire code, that is our major concern, right? So that is why if we are going to execute this code, so we will get an error, and the error where we will get over there is that, see the error, what statement we are getting over here is y has private access in your access, right? So that is why you will get an error over here. So always remember this point. So
then how can we access this,
sir?
Yes,
how can we access the
How
value
can
of
we?
y?
sorry, I don't get your question. Can you please repeat?
It means if we want to print the value of y, or we can use, so how can we use that if
Yeah,
we
yeah.
want
So,
to
yeah,
access
yeah.
it?
So that is a very good question. Okay, because what if we are basically using this your private variable, then it means that we will never able to basically what access this basically this value. So how can we access this value? So that is why now after this slide, that is why I have added, because that is a very good question. So I have added one more slide, and in that slide, I am going to explain you the concept of encapsulation. And using encapsulation, basically, we are performing whatever the doubt you have. Okay, so let's discuss about your doubt. So first of all, I'm just giving you one example. After that, I will tell you your doubt. Okay, I think in the next class, I think yeah, in the next example, I am having that. that thing I have put. So see, can you create a subclass to the following class? So always remember, whenever we have a class A having this your private access modifier, right? This constructor is of your private, always remember. And here what I have done, here I am having private access modifier. So if I want to create a subclass of this class, it means if I'm going to create a class B extends class A. So is it possible? So always remember that no, you cannot create a subclass to that class which has only, always remember, which has only private constructor. So this is a very important statement, okay? So if you have a class containing only private constructor, then in that scenario, you won't be able to create a subclass. So I will tell you about all those things later on. But the first question which he has asked me about that, okay, if we have a private variable, so how can we access this variable? So if you have solved, I think your third problem of your your lab one and your third problem. So in the third problem, basically you are using the concept of encapsulation. So basically, what is encapsulation? Encapsulation is basically a wrapping up of your data with your code, and basically code are what? Your method. Okay, so basically encapsulation is a concept through which we are performing the concept of data hiding. Okay, data hiding. So what are the basic requirements of encapsulation? I am telling you, right? So see, here in this question, what I have done in this program, basically I have created a class, and the name of this class is what? Person, right? Now inside this class, I have created a variable, and you can see directly that this variable is of, we are using private access modifier for that, right? Now, as you can see over there, if I want to access this variable, if I just want to access this variable directly outside this class, so you know the output that we will get an error. Like in our earlier example, you already saw that if we have executed that program, then what happened? What output we got? We got an error. But what that question was, that what if we want to access this variable value? Okay, so if I want to add some value, and if I want to get some value, sorry, set some value, and if I want to get some the variable value. So with the help of encapsulation, what we are doing, we are implementing some methods. Okay, always remember, we are implementing some methods. With the help of those methods, we are able to either set some value on our private variable, or either we can fetch the value from our private variable. So let's see what we have done with the help of get and set method. So see, in your person class, what we have done, we have created two methods, right? And you can directly see that these two methods are what? Your public method. Now, this method is known as your setter method, and this method is known as your getter method. So what setter method is doing? So if we are calling, so can we call this method outside this class? Yes, we can call this method. Why we can call this method outside this class? Because this is a public method, and this is a local variable. So yes, we can use this local variable, and whatever the argument we are passing, but here we are basically accessing which one? Your age, your variable, and age is a private variable. So we can access this thing. There is no issue at all, right? Similarly, if I want to fetch this thing, so I'm not fetching, I'm not directly accessing my variable. Now with the help of return variable, what I am going to return statement, I am just returning the value, whatever the value I am having. So if you want to access the value, or if you want to set some value on private variable, then it is mandatory for you to implement getter as well as your setter method inside your that particular class, right? So in this code, what we have done, if you will see over there, I have created a class named as main. Inside my public static void main, you can see over there, I am creating an object of person class. So I can create, yes, I can create an object of person class, no issue at all. Now after that, because I want to access this variable, can I access this variable if I'm going to write p1.age, right, is equals to 10? If I'm going to write, then I will get an error. Why? Because I am accessing your private variable. But based on our functionality, I want to basically access this variable. I want to basically set some value. So how can I set this value? So I will directly call this method that is known as your set age method, right? This one. I will call this set age method, and in this age method I am passing the value 24 over there. So automatically my this local variable, this is a local variable age. So don't get confused. So this age and this age both are different. Always remember, right? This is a local variable and this is your instance variable, right? So here what we are doing, after writing this dot age, this is a keyword which will tell us about that we are accessing our current object instance, means we are accessing our current object variable, right? So that is why we have written this dot age, and that is how we are able to basically set the value as what your 24. Now similarly, if I want to basically print the value of age, so how can I print this value? So with the help of your getter method. So here what I am doing, I am basically calling this method, and using this method, what I am going to do, I will be able to directly call this your method. Okay. So if you are going to execute this code, so what will happen? You are not going to get any error. Always remember, right? So this is how basically you can solve this problem. So the question which you have asked is very correct, because in most of the scenario, so the question again that comes into your mind is that, sir, that if that is the thing, if we can modify this variable, so why we are making it as private? See, it depends upon the developer. Okay. So suppose if you want that I want to make a class which can only through which you can only fetch the information, you cannot set the information. So what I will do, I will only uh, write only one method, and using this method you can only take the value. Like for example, in the case of your what we call it as your bank account number, right? So let's assume your bank account number is private. Now what they have done, in your bank private number, if you want to fetch, so they have just to use this get method. So if you want to find out like what is your account number, so you will be able to call only this method. You cannot modify this your what we call it as your bank account number. So that is why in their class what they have done, they have not implemented this setter method. So it depends upon that. So basically what you are doing, you are also performing data hiding. You are hiding this entire variable so that you will not have a direct access with the help of that. Okay. So this is all about the concept of your encapsulation. So the whole idea behind encapsulation is to hide the implementation details from the user. So we don't know that how you have implemented, but we know that okay, through this method we will able to fetch the information, and through this method we will be able to what? We will be able to set some method. It might be possible we might have used some logic. Okay, we might have used some logic. So we are not at all concerned about that logic. We just want, okay, if you want that thing, okay, just set to call this method. If you want to set some values, so call this method. Okay. So if a data member is private, it means it can only be accessed within the same class. No outside class can access private data member. Okay. So this is the main concept. So in interview, if somebody is going to ask you, okay, so can you tell me about that? If you have a private variable, can you access that variable outside this class? So you will say that, sir, directly we cannot access this class, but with the help of methods, and always remember that these methods should be your public or as well as default method. So it depends. Like if you're working in the same, even outside package, if you want to access, so make it public, otherwise make it your protected. So it depends upon your application, right? So this should be your answer. Okay, so
Sir,
why?
uh, can we alter the values of the private means in the private public int get age? We can just change the values also in set age. Sorry, set
Yeah,
age.
yeah. Actually, we see we are creating an object now. So you already know that if we are, let's assume here we have created P1 object. Let's assume if I'm going to create an object like P2 object. So what we are going to do, we are going to basically create this object. But actually over there, what is happening over there is through this class. In whenever we are creating an object, you know that automatically we will get an instance variable, and that instance variable will be what your age. You know about this thing. We will get this age. But with the help of this class, I cannot access this direct age over there. But yes, if you want to set or if you want to get the value, then you have to implement what your methods. Okay, so without method you cannot directly access these your objects P1 as well as P2. Got your answer?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So so why we cannot instance class A in the below code outside the package, even though it has a public constructor? So here you can see over there we have a package pack1. Now we have a class, right? Class A, and we have a public constructor, right? So this constructor, so you can make constructor as public, private, it is up to you, because you already know that constructor is also a method, okay? And the difference between constructor and your method is that your class name should and method name should, constructor name should be same, and it should not return any value, okay? So I cannot write void over there. If I'm going to write void over there, then it will become method, okay? Don't say that, okay, sir, we will get an error. Always remember, if in your exam, if we will give you like void A over there, write this. So don't say, sir, we will get an error. So we can take, it's up to us whether we want to make our method name as class name or not. So here now this is what, this is a method, right? But if somebody is going to ask you about, okay, how to make a constructor, so in order to make it a constructor, it is always should be your class name, and it should not contain any return type value, right? So here you already know that why we are not able to, why we will get an error over there, because you can see over there, this class is of which using which access modifier? Default. So you already know that, can we access this class outside this class? So no, we are not able to access this class. So that is why you will get a compile time error. Yes, is there anyone who is getting who is having any doubt in this code, source code, that why we are getting an error? See, we are working on two packages, right? Pack 1 and your pack 2. And in my pack 2, I have created a class B, which is basically creating an object of class A. But you can see directly over there that class A is what? It is a default access modifier. It is using default access modifier. So you already know that default access modifier, we cannot access outside this class. So that is why you will get an error, compile time error. So sometimes in your MCQ question, or in sometimes in or in interview question, they might ask you these such kind of question. Is it possible that if you have a public constructor, if you have a code, if you have a class having only public constructor, and in different package, if you want to, in different class, you want to create an object of that particular class, so is it possible that every time we are able to basically execute this code successfully? Then you will say that no, sir, if we are going to make this class as public, then, or if we are going to make a class as protected, and if we are basically inherit using the concept of inheritance, then only we will be able to create an object of that particular class, right? So this is all about your constructor. Now start our second topic. So I hope that now you know the concept of your public, private, protected, as well as default. So just try to find out. So concepts are quite simple. but you should know the applicability. Okay, so in your projects too, just try to use these access modifier very wisely, as I told you, so that you will know the functionality. Okay, if you don't want, make it private. So if you want to perform some guess of some sort of security on that particular your variable, so just try to use getter or setter method, right? Like that. Now, so till now we have covered these four access modifiers. So now after this we are going to discuss about non-access modifier, right? So in non-access modifier, I know that you all of you have already have an idea about this static non-access modifier. So you know that static is what your, whenever we want to deal with class level, we always use for static. You know that how to create a static variable, how to create a static method, how to create a static block. So you should have an idea about static. So that is why I'm not going to cover here. Okay, so because we have already covered, and we have I think one lecture I have already entirely dedicated to this, your static variable. So in this lecture, we are going to discuss about final and abstract, even though, although you already have an idea about final, but still I will tell you about the entire functionality of your final keyword. Okay. Then we are going to discuss about abstract. Abstract is a very important concept. Okay. While we are not going to discuss these non-access modifier in the depth, why we are not going to discuss about these things? Because see, this synchronized access modifier is basically used in your multi-threading. Okay, so whenever we are going to discuss about multi-threading, so first of all, you should know about what do you mean by thread, then only you will understand the concept of synchronized. Okay, so first of all, you should know the functionality of thread. So I don't want to introduce that concept right now, otherwise you will have a lot of confusion. Okay, so basically by the name suggests synchronized, it means like if you have thread T1 and T2, and if they are fighting for some variable, let's assume int a. Okay, so because use with the help of multi-threading, what we are doing, we are performing parallel computing. So if you want to perform parallel programming now, so in that scenario you have to use the concept of multi-threading. But as you already know that, but at a time, only one thread should access a variable at a time. It's not like that or both the thread will execute that particular variable or use the value of variable or update the value of variable at the same time. Why? Because it may lead to inconsistent state. Like I can give you an example of, suppose agar I am just performing some sort of transaction. Okay, so what will happen अगर दोनों स्टेट दोनों थ्रेड साइमल्टेनियसली एग्जीक्यूट करेंगे, अगर एक साइड से मेरा ट्रांजैक्शन भी होता है एंड साइमल्टेनियसली मैं अपना एड्रेस भी चेक करता हूँ, और या फिर मैं एक और अपना ट्रांजैक्शन, दोनों ट्रांजैक्शन साइमल्टेनियसली करता हूँ, तो अगर मेरे अकाउंट में फॉर एग्जांपल 10,000 रुपीज है, अगर मैं ट्रांजैक्शन T1 भी करता हूँ और T2 करता हूँ, एक में मैं 500 करता हूँ एंड एक में मैं 200 करता हूँ. So what will happen if you are saying that I am performing this transaction parallelly, means simultaneously, then what will happen? Automatically मेरे यहाँ पर deduction कितना होगा? 700 का होगा, right? 700 मेरे अकाउंट से डिडक्ट होने चाहिए. But in reality what will happen? जो भी प्रोसेस, let's assume ये T2 तुम्हारी प्रोसेस लास्ट में थोड़ी एग्जीक्यूट हो रही है, because let's assume it is taking some amount of time. तो तुम आपके अकाउंट में ओनली 200 रुपीज डिडक्ट होंगे, ये वाले अकाउंट डिडक्ट नहीं होंगे. So that is why you need synchronization, means that first T2 will execute, then it will update the account, then T2 will execute. But they are executing in a very parallelly in such a way that in a very fast manner, so that we are not able to recognize. We will understand कि अच्छा ये दोनों के दोनों transaction, both the transaction are working simultaneously or concurrently, but in reality it is not like that. One transaction is working first, then second transaction is working, right? But the way we have implemented threads in such a way that the difference is in like your microseconds like that. So in the fraction of second, both the transactions gets executed, but at a time only one transaction we are executing. Right. Similarly, we have strict FP. So what is strict FP? So using this as you already know that whenever we are using floating point number, okay, like your double or floating, so you know that we are using the concept of precision. So you have, I think in your lab problems, I have seen like sometimes a student is saying that, sir, we are getting different values whenever we are printing the value of some floating values. I'm not saying that every time, but sometimes. So using strict FP, if you are going to make some variable as strict FP, then every time you will get the same value, whatever the same value you are adding. So if you are executing 1,000 times, so you will get the same floating point value. So at that time, we will use strict FP. Native nowadays, we are not using this access modifier, because earlier on, when Java is in the earlier stage, then we want to use the libraries of C or C++ programming language. Then in that scenario, if we want to use the functionality of those libraries, then we go for what your native. But nowadays, nobody is using this your native access modifier. Then we have transient and your volatile access modifier. So transient is that whenever, so again, first of all, you should know what do you mean by serializable schedule, okay? So whenever we don't want, so right now you should just know about this thing, that if you want non-serializability, then always try to use transient. But I am 100% sure that in most of your labs, you are not going to use these variables, okay? But all of you are going to use only these variables in your lab assignment. Only 3 variables, first 3 non-access modifiers. That's why I just want to focus it more on these 3 variables. And even in interview also, they mostly they will ask about related to these 3 variables. So we have already covered this thing, and we are going to discuss about final and abstract. And last one is your volatile. So see, volatile variable, as you already know that in our system, we have RAM, we have your secondary memory, and we have a cache memory. Right. So sometimes we want that what is happening. Suppose if I'm going to write int a is equals to 10, right? So what is happening? First of all, 10 I am updating over here. I am taking it from secondary memory to main memory to cache memory. Then you have L1 cache, L2 cache. I'm not going to discuss about those things. So means there are multiple levels, okay? And then you are performing whatever the changes you want. But sometimes what happen in your program, there sometimes you will trigger some sort of variables whose values are means changing frequently, okay? So हो क्या रहा है, उनकी values क्या हो रही है, frequently changes हो रही है. So you can see that it is going to take a lot of time, because secondary to RAM to cache, then again we are going to write whatever the instruction we want to write. So it is going to take a lot of time, right? So in order to sort out this issue, what we generally do, we are going to make this thing as variable as volatile. So what will happen now, my program, whatever the value I'm writing now, I'm not going to, I will directly access my RAM, my main memory. Now I'm not going to access my cache memory. So this is how basically we can use the functionality of volatile. So volatile access modifier, non-access modifier, we generally use whenever you will find that, okay, we keeps on changing the means frequently that particular value. So it is going to take a lot of time, okay? So that is why it's better to go for volatile, and it will directly store your value in your RAM. Okay. So now we are going to discuss about final. So don't get confused with these access modifier, that I haven't gone in depth of that, because I know that right now the functionality is not that much, okay? So I don't want to waste your time for that, but still if it is required, I'm going to cover all those things in a very like in depth and with the help of example. But right now the main thing for me, the main concepts are these things, like your final, static, and abstract. Let's start with your final access, non-access modifier, right? So what do you mean by final access modifier? So I think in some of your program or code, you have in some lectures, I have used this keyword, final keyword. So what I told you about this final keyword, so we have used this final keyword only with the help of only in your variables, okay? So what I told you, if you are going to write final int x is equals to 10. So what I told you, that final keyword will make this variable as constant. Constant means you cannot change the variable value later on. After that, it's not like that I will make x is equals to 11. I cannot update this value. I can use this value, that is okay. But if I want to make something constant, okay, even with the help of your string, something you want to make it as your constant, so that no one will change that particular variable value, it's better to use this keyword known as your final. Okay, so let's check it out. What is the definition of your final access modifier? So it is a modifier applicable for your classes, methods, and variables. So it is also applicable in your classes, methods, as well as your variables. If a method as it is declared as final, then we are not allowed to override that method in the child class. So I will tell you with the help of example, you will understand that why you won't be able to perform override. But right now, you know, one concept is that what do you mean by method overriding? Method overriding is that suppose you have a class parent, right? And suppose you have a class child, and child extends your parent class. Now you are performing the concept of inheritance over there. Suppose in this class we have a method named as display. Right. Now I want to change this display method in my child class. So what I will do, I can implement the same method, but always remember the method name as well as the signature should be same. Okay. So if I'm going to implement this method, then what I'm going to do in my child class, I am overriding this method. It means I am modifying this method. But as what I have told you, that with the help of final keyword, you cannot make any changes. So with respect to variable, you can directly understand that, okay, we are making a constant variable value. Okay. But with the help whenever we are using with the help of your methods, so again, it means that you cannot change that method. So sometimes like you want to create some class and you want that, okay, I don't want that someone should make some changes in that particular method. So what you do, you just make that method as final. Okay, like this. So see, there are three types, three places where we can use this your final access non-access modifier. So whenever we are using with the help of methods, that whenever the method parent has by default available to the child, okay, it is all means if we are using the concept of your inheritance, automatically we will be able to fetch this method. So, but this point is important, that if the child is not allowed to override any method, that method we have to declare with final in the parent. So if you don't want, so whatever the thing I have explained you, that if you don't want to override that particular method, so it's better to make that method as what your final. Similarly, when to make a class final, so always remember what Java language designer, what they have made. So please don't get confused whenever you are going to use with class. Okay, because with your method and variable, that is okay, that we can use it, but we cannot make any changes. But always remember with respect to class, if you are making a class as final, then you cannot use the concept of inheritance, means you cannot create a child class of that particular class. So always remember, so this is the concept of your final access modifier, non-access modifier with the help of class. So if you want that, okay, someone should not means inherit my class, so what you will do, you will make that class as what your final class. Okay, so you cannot, so in your exam sometimes if somebody is going to ask you about, okay, if there is a scenario where you don't want to create a subclass, okay, of that particular class, so how you are going to implement that code? Because as you already know that private as well as protected access modifier we cannot use. So how can we use it? How can we implement it? So with the help of your final access non-access modifier, we are able to do it. Okay, we are able to achieve it. And variables, I think where for variables we have already discussed. Okay, so let's go for one by one. So here in this example, with respect to class, I am telling you. So in this class, what I have done, I have created a class test, and see, this class is what my final. Okay, having default access modifier and your final, right? Final means what I have told you, that if I'm going to execute, it means I cannot create a child of this class. But here what I am doing, I have created a class that is your child class, which is inheriting this class, which is inheriting this class. So what I told you based on our definition is that we cannot inherit a final class. So that is why here in this line we will get an error. Always remember, not here. We will get an error directly here, that we cannot directly perform this operation. And always remember that every method present inside a final class is always final by default, whether we are declaring it or not. But every variable inside a final class need not be final. Okay, so always remember that automatically this method will become what your final. Okay, automatically, if you are declaring a method as what a class as what your final class. Now if you are using this final variable with your instance variable, so you already know about what do you mean by instance variable. Instance variable are those variables which we are basically going through whenever we are creating an object. So through object only we are able to access it. So always remember this point. I think we have already used this concept, is that whenever we are declaring a class, right? And after it, if I'm going to write final int I over there, so I can show you in on my Eclipse so that you will have a better understanding, right? So here in this class, what I have done, I have created a package final test. Let me zoom it, right? So I have created a package final test over there, and I have a class test, right? So inside this package, what I have done right now, just make it final. Now it means that what kind of variable is this? This is an instance variable. So what are the rules of whenever we are yes, yes, any question? Okay. What is happening over there, if we are going to use this final variable or access modifier over there, then what will happen? See, agar main yahan par, if I am going to remove int x, then what is happening? I am getting an error. It means that whenever you are using final variable with respect to for any variable, if you are using this final non-access modifier with respect to any using with any variable, then always remember that your JVM is not going to initialize that value. So it means that it is mandatory for you to initialize it. So that is why if I'm going to write 10 over there, then you can see over there I'm not getting any error. But if I am not going to initialize it, then I am getting an error. And one more thing is that with the help of instance initialization block, so you know that what do you mean by instance initialization? Yeah. Yes, kindly mute your mic if you don't have any other question, right? Just mute your mic. Yeah. So after that, I'm just going to end this session once I'm going to complete this final value. Okay. So what is happening over there is that if I want to initialize this value, so I can initialize with the help of instance initialization block too. So what is this? This is my IIB. So I think you have already gone through, we have already gone through what do you mean by IIB. So in IIB, if I'm going to write x is equals to 1, see, now I am not getting any error. And even if I'm going to use constructor, then it means that I can initialize the value of an instance variable either in the same line or with the help of your IIB or with the help of what your constructor. Other than that, we won't be able to basically what access, or sorry, we cannot basically declare that particular variable. Now, This is what I have mentioned over there, that for the final variable, we should perform initialization before constructor completion. That is the following possibility. So either we can go for initialization while declaration, or IIB, or your constructor. Otherwise, we will get an error. Similarly, how we can make static variable as your final variables too. So again, in the case of your, if I'm going to make it static, right? So what will happen? Static means I am directly accessing this variable where with the help of class. So you know that static always belong to class. So in earlier time, what happened, whenever if I'm going to write only static int x, so my JVM will automatically assign the default value of x is equals to 0. But if I'm going to make it final, then always remember you have only one option, that is you have to initialize the value over here. You cannot use constructor as well as IIB, because as you already know that whenever you are executing your code, first thing which will execute in your program are static blocks and all like that. Okay, so you cannot use these things. Similarly, the last one is your local variable. So local variables, always remember that sometimes in interview they might ask you these such kind of question, is that which variable, which access modifier or non-access modifier you can use with respect to your local variable. Always remember. So in your local variable, you can use only your final non-access modifier. So see, what I mean to say is that if you are going to use private, public, or whatever the variable we have gone through, we will get an error. We are not going to get an error if we are using your final non-access modifier. Right? This is very important. Okay. So what I mean to say, see, this is what my local variable is. Int a is what? My local variable. If I am going to make it public, see now public, so see, I am getting an error that you cannot make a local variable as public. I cannot use any access modifier. I can only use final access modifier. So if somebody is going to ask you, like for local variable, which access modifier you can use, or non-access modifier you can use basically in a generalized term, so you will directly say that we can only use your final. We cannot use other access modifier like that. Okay, so this is all about your your access as well as your non-access modifier. So in our next class, or means after your mid-semester examination, we are going to use a new topic that is known as your abstraction in Java, and that topic is very interesting. Okay, so through this your topic, and after that we are going to learn about interfaces. So I'm going to cover this entire topic in my next. So yes, if anyone is having any doubt, feel free to ask. Yes, any doubt so far? Yes, anyone is having any doubt with respect to our entire course?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, can you repeat the last part about the local variables once again?
Okay. So what I've told you about this local variable, see, let me tell you about this thing. See, whenever you are using local variables, so you know that what do you mean by local variable? Local variables are those variables which you are basically using inside some boundary, okay, or inside some block. So it means that now why this a is a local variable, because I cannot access this variable outside this public static void main method. If I'm going to write it down a over here, then what will happen? I will get an error. Means outside this method I cannot use this your what we call it as your variable. Similarly, if I'm going to make this inside your if, something like that, like 1 is greater than 0, like this, these such kind of a statement if I want to write, so it means that now this a is what my local variable. And what is the scope of this variable? The scope of this variable is only inside this loop. Means after this loop, if I'm going to write a, then see here what I'm going. A cannot resolve a type, means this A is undefined, means outside this loop I cannot use it. So apart from your instance variable and your static variable, we have one more variable that is known as your local variable. So in your local variable, like we have gone through various different kind of access modifiers, right? So how many types of access modifier we have used? We have used public, right? So if you are going to use and make it as public, then it will give you an error. If you are going to make private or whatever the means access modifier you want to use, okay, so you will get an error. So only one access modifier which you can use for your local variable is what your final access modifier. But the question that comes into your mind is why we can use final access modifier? Because you already know this concept. What I mean to say is that let's check it out. Now, if I want to print system.out.println A. Yeah. Is there anyone? Let make it like this. If I'm going to execute this code, right, then what output I will get? Can anyone tell me? Yes, anyone? Just don't go for this entire course. I'm just asking about these number of lines.
0.
You said 0. Okay, so always remember, no, you will get an error.
Oh.
Why? Because JVM will initialize the default values for only your static variables and your instance variable, like this, right? अगर मैं इसको instance variable बनाऊंगा और ये static variable बनाऊंगा, then only my JVM will assign some default value. For integer, it will be 0. But
Okay.
always remember, for local variable, it will never give me. JVM is not at all interested for local variables. That is why JVM means my compiler will give me an error over there. So if I'm going to execute this code, see what error I'm getting. I'm getting an error over there is the local variable A may not have been initialized. So I have to initialize some value over there, right? So if I'm going to final, so that is okay. Final will work with your int for local variable, but always remember I cannot modify the value of local. See, now I am getting an error because now everything is fine after initializing or writing the question or writing this in statement. But if I'm going to modify it, because with the help of final, I cannot modify this thing. Okay, so this is all about your local variable. So in our today's lecture, we have learned about the concept of encapsulation. We have revised our access modifier concept, and then we have covered our entire concept, or we have gone through various different types of your non-access modifier, and we have gone through. I have covered this your entire your final non-access modifier. So in our next lecture, so on, I'm going to start our new concept that is known your abstract. Okay, abstract. Then we will go for your interface and so on like that. Yes. Any doubts so far, Harshvardhan? Got your answer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. Any doubt? Is there